Mm, 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 mm. Mm, mm. Mm, 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 mm. Mm, 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 mm. Mm, 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 mm. Hello, everybody. It's a beautiful Thursday afternoon. You know the song, usually I open my broadcast with a song, but this morning, you know what's been ringing in my head? It's that old song, The Very Thought of You, and I forget to do the little ordinary things that I ought to do. I see your face in every flower. I'm happy as a king. It's just the thought of you, the mere idea of you, my love. Remember that? Oh boy, tell you what. Guys, I'm a bit of a romantic, whatever that means. Hello, everybody. Hope you're well. It's a little after 12 o'clock, and we're here to talk about something very important, I think. Let's talk about the impending selection of the president within the N.P.F. Now, for those of you that do not know what those three letters stand for, it's basically the notorious Patriotic Front. People ask me all the time, why do you call them that? Why do you say the notorious Patriotic Front? Well, as you know, the word notorious is someone that is mischievous. Other people say mischievous. You can say mischievous, you can say mischievous. People will understand what you're saying. Somebody that's notorious is someone that is not only reckless, but is on a rampage. You know, when you say he is notorious, it means he's up to no good. It means he's got some serious underhanded tactics that he wants to engage in. Somebody that's notorious is somebody that is not honest, somebody that's out to harm you, somebody that's planning to bring about your downfall. When you hear someone say notorious, but here's the reason. I don't think I've ever shared this, and I'll go ahead and share it now because I think that's one of the most important things about being a vlogger. People get to know exactly what you're thinking. The main reason I call them the notorious Patriotic Front, aside from the fact that that is their character, okay, let's be frank, let's be honest, aside from the fact that that is their natural proclivity, that is their natural inclination. Anything to do with violence, anything to do with skullduggery, anything to do with underhandedness, anything to do with intimidation. It aptly, accurately describes the nature of the N.P.F, the Notorious Patriotic Front. But let me explain to you why I coined that phrase. Prior to pre 2021, before, pre means before, PRE means before 2021, during the reign of the tyrannical reign of the PF, when they were campaigning in 2021, I used to go to the rallies because I'd go to the PF rallies, I'd go to UPND rallies. They would pay me the same. You know, we're media. SML TV is a media house. I have a very unconventional style of vlogging. You know, my vlogging is I take the camera, I shoot. Sometimes I point the camera to myself, and I do it my way. Okay, it's not conventional. Conventional means it's not the way everybody else does it. So, you know, each time I would go to these rallies, Antonio Mwanza, who's a dear friend, and I love him, you know, Antonio Mwanza is a very good friend of mine, and Him and I, we get along, even though he's PF, we get along very well. Antonio Mwanza used to, at the rallies, at the PF rallies, he would stand up and before he introduced the main speaker, he used to go through this clarion call. He used to say, the mighty patriotic front. Do you remember that? Do you guys remember that during the PF? He would always say that. He would say, the mighty. In his words, he would say, the mighty patriotic front. He'd always say that. And I got to thinking, I thought, well, the truth is they're not so mighty. I think they're more notorious than in my heart, I was thinking this. The moment they left, I now could express that. I could say exactly what I was thinking because each time Antonio Mwanza would say, the mighty patriotic front, in my heart, I'd always say, no, not mighty. I think you mean the notorious. So when they left, I tell you what, I had a field day because now I said, I'm going to go on every broadcast and just say, and every time I refer to them, I will always refer to them as the Notorious Patriotic Front because that's exactly what they are and that's what they were. All right, let's jump into this real quick. Let's throw out this question. It's up there, you can see it. Who will be the next president of the N.P.F, the Notorious Patriotic Front? I find it curious. And interesting. You guys know this. The Registrar of Societies a few days ago issued a threat to the N.P.F. They basically said to the N.P.F, if you jokers, if you clowns don't give us a list of 10 key people in the position of leadership within your party will be deregistered. We're going to put a line through your name instead of under it. And very quickly, the N.P.F swung into action and they produced a list. Now, this is what I find interesting. The current acting vice president of the N.P.F, Vagiven Lubinda, whom I know and I love Vagiven. I think he's a great guy. Him and I, we get along, He was on a radio, Music FM. He was a guest on a radio show recently, and he was asked to name the members that were listed on that list. He couldn't name 5. He was struggling to get the names. He was completely blank, which tells you that the response from the N.P.F to the Registrar of Society after having been threatened was a knee-jerk reaction. It was just one of those, imwe, lembeni amalist. Amashina weekend wang aba register, wala to start the register. Filembeni machine, as long as you make sure you put the former President Edgar Lungu there. Whichever names you come up with, whether it's Kampiongo, whether it's Bomani, whether it's Hamsankwa, whoever, just put them there. But make sure former President Eddie Garungu's there and send that thing. Guys, the N.P.F need to be more organized. They really do. They need to be more organized because here's the truth, guys. We cannot live in a country that doesn't have a viable opposition that provides checks and balances. We can't do that. We do not live in a totalitarian state. We don't. We live in a democracy. And thus, we need a good opposition. We do. But then these jokers are fooling around. They're tiptoeing through the tulips. They're holding hands, singing Kumbaya, playing Patty Cake Baker Man. YPF, can you please be serious? Go serious. Go serious. Be serious. Now, let me say here, when I think of the trajectory that the N.P.F is on, I can't help but look back at history. You know that old saying, history repeats itself? Well, here's my response to that saying. History repeats itself only if people don't record it for reference. If it's not recorded for reference, here, let me fix that. We've got to be accurate. Otherwise, on Facebook, no, you didn't put the apostrophe T on there. There it is. History repeats itself only if people don't record it for reference. I said all of that to say this. During the presidency of one President Chiluba, the second president of Zambia. Some of you were born, many of you were not. It was a long time ago. I was there, okay? I was alive during that time. When President Chiluba, late former President Chiluba, started talking about the third term, this was after he had served 10 years in office. The MMD were riding high on the saddle, but Chiluba felt invincible. He felt, oh no, I can't sit here for only 10 years. I've got to go beyond my mandate. He began to talk about the third term, which really divided the country. But one of the things that former President Chiluba said, and for those of you that were there, you remember this. President Chiluba said, I'm saying debate. I'm not saying I want to be president for a third term. No, I'm saying you debate. The very same thing Rafael Nakachinda said a few days ago. Did you listen to what Rafael Nakachinda said? Rafael Nakachinda, one of the political despots, one of the political jokers we have here in Zambia, one of the chaps that are whispering nonsense in former President Lungu's ears. Rafael Nakachinda said the same thing a few days ago. He said, no, I know there are certain circles in the public. They are calling for the former president of Zambia, President Edgar Lungu, to throw his hat back into the ring. It is their choice. We are saying they can talk about it. The same language that former President Chiluba used when he said, no, just debate, and in those days, it was very divisive. Some of you may not remember, but that was a very divisive issue. The Zambian people had to push back against that. That's the reason why Chiluba knew. He read the room. You know that phrase, to read the room? He read the room. He knew. Ichita chabombe. Issue ya third term. Abantu abena Zambia tabara fire. So very quickly, he had to find a ram, fidabaranda muchipingo, a ram in the bush. A ram in the bush. If you're not a Christian, you don't know what that means. And that's how we got President Wanawasa. But my point is, Chiluba pushed the envelope to the very edge of democracy because he wanted to see how the Zambian people would respond. Because according to Chiluba, you remember Chiluba said, Zambians are very docile, which is true anyway. He was being very truthful. Do you remember that? Tell me in the comments. Do any of you remember when former President Chiluba said, Zambians, very docile? That's the reason why Chiluba attempted to convince the Zambian people to give him a third term, because Chiluba could see that if you want to, you just pull the wool over their eyes. But Paddy Ishwi, Chiluba misread the room. He could see that, no, Zambians don't want this. Zambians openly rejected the third term. And because we rejected it then, we will never accept it. So it doesn't matter how much the P.F. play patty cake, baker man. It doesn't matter how the PF try to dance around the issue. It doesn't matter what Banakachinda does. It doesn't matter what Bowman says. It doesn't matter what Given Lubinda says. The Zambian people are not going to give former President Edgar Lungu a third term. You must know that. If you don't know that, you're blind. But I guarantee you, in the hallowed halls of the PF, this is the plan. When the lights are turned off under the cover of darkness, Abena Nakachinda, Abena Boman, they whisper these lies in the ears of former President Lungu. Molebwele rapo. Tapari na umbi yo. Ni mwevo chave. And it breaks my heart because I think it's a sad thing that former President Lungu is even listening to these jokers. I mean, it's fine and dandy to say we live in a democratic dispensation, but here it is. You are allowing people to deliberately create a spirit of acrimony, political angst, political discourse, because you think that people want you back. Listen, former President Barack Obama, to some people, was a great president. To some people, he was a brilliant president. But I guarantee you the American people don't want him back. You know why? Because it's called the circle of democracy. It's called, sorry, not the circle, the cycle of democracy. The cycle of democracy. You do your term. If you're reelected, you serve again. Once you're done, boom, you step aside. So they recognize that. So my point is, it doesn't matter how great of a president you think you are. When your time passes, it passes. It is foolish. It is disingenuous for Zambians to think, for what? For what? We move on. Even this, I keep telling you, even this administration, as great as this president is, even in this administration, there's coming a time when President HH will step aside. Somebody else will fill in the gap. So does it make sense for people to stand on the highest mountaintop and start screaming, no, that's not how democracies work, okay? So here's the thing. In terms of the next president of the N.P.F, President Lungu is the only one that is holding the keys to that door, meaning he's the only one that can lead the party and convince the party to begin to democratically select another leader. But as long as all we see is former President Lungu jogging, receiving guests from his house, at his home, laughing, eating. Do you know the message you're sending, former President Lungu? Do you know the message you're sending to the people? The message you're sending to the people is, I'm not even going to bother about selecting the new president. It might as well just be me. What should be top of your list, what should be of great concern, what should be at the top of your list of priorities, former President Lungu, is to begin to select a new president for your party. Create that environment where you tell your members, guys, we need to choose someone else. But as long as you act, as long as you ignore the elephant in the room, your party will die a miserable death. The N.P.F will die a miserable, unbearable death. And it will be your fault, sir. No one else. The buck stops with you. Buck, the bucket. The buck stops with you. It's true. Now, some people may say, does the N.P.F have money to hold the convention? Of course they do. Some of you don't know that. Remember during the N.P.F when they talked about the house of prayer? Remember in those days they were building this big edifice on Burma Road. That's another big scandal. That's another big financial scandal. If the facts of that issue come out, oh my goodness, somebody's going to jail. The N.P.F, the plan before they lost the elections, they were planning to build a massive, ultra-modern patriotic front headquarters on a huge, big piece of land, approximately 5 acres. That was the plan. They even got the Chinese contractor. The part of the slab was done, and in their minds, the PF knew, they thought that they would come back, and in coming back, one of their priorities was to build a huge, gargantuan political edifice, a building, the PF headquarters. This was going to be where the new PF headquarters was going to be located, on Burma Road. When the N.P.F lost, guess what they did? The top brass of the N.P.F sold that land to Sakali for $1 million. 1 million US dollars. The average PF member knows nothing about that money. The top chaps. So when you say N.P.F has no money, woofy. They have over $1 million. On top of that, every N.P.F member every month donates 5,000 kwacha to the party. There are about 60 MPs from the N.P.F. Each one of them donates 5,000 kwacha every month to the party. Nobody in the N.P.F knows how they spend that money. They don't. Nobody knows. Nobody. Why? Because the top brass skim off the top. Do you know what it means to skim off the top? Google it. So yeah, the N.P.F is in a lot of trouble. If they're going to survive, former President Lungu has to be very proactive. He has to take the lead in bringing in the party and then explaining to them that it is absolutely, it's imperative, it is critical that the next leader is selected, is chosen, so that the party moves on. But right now, the N.P.F, they're in purgatory. They're in political purgatory. For those of you that are Catholics, you know that word. Political purgatory. Who can tell me in the comments? Oh, could somebody tell me what purgatory means in the comments? Just write it. I'll throw your name up here. Because that's where you are. As long as you don't make a deliberate move, and the only person that is holding those keys, unfortunately, is former President Lungu. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be about a system, not a person. Shouldn't be that way. In any political party, whether it's the UPND, whether it's the PF, whether it's the MMD, whoever it is, we need to begin to move into an area within Zambian politics where systems govern, not people. It shouldn't be up to one person to decide. Bantu, the way it is now, I'm telling you, our former President Lungu is the only one who can pick up the phone and say, Bane, it's time. It's time to select a president. You'll see how they'll korongana. They'll come running. But it shouldn't be about that. It should be about a system. Zambia. Do I pin? All righty. Right now, the N.P.F is in political purgatory. They are suspended. They are in what's the word? Not limbo. Yes, limbo. They're in limbo. They're suspended between up and down. They don't know what to do. And the longer they take, the more disintegrated the party becomes. And so the answer to the question is the question is, who will be the next president of the N.P.F? We don't know, because former President Lungu is the only one that holds the keys to the door to selecting a new president. It shouldn't be him. If you N.P.F people select former President Lungu as your candidate, Bwana, you'll finish within a whisper. Nobody wants that. We want our former president to retire, to enjoy the last chapter of his life. He's in the dawn, he's in the not the dawn, he's in the sunset of his life. We don't want him to come back to politics. Why? Because he's already served. He served 7 years. It's time for somebody else. We've got a president now that's doing that. Who wants to go back to that? We don't. I don't. I know you don't. All right. Thought I'd share that with you guys. Somebody says the doldrums. That's a good one. That's a good word, the doldrums. Somebody says, avoid quoting by PF, N.P.F. Why? Why would I avoid that? I'm describing their nature. I'm describing their proclivity. That's the nature of who they are. Very notorious. But you know that to be true. Come on, guys. Zambezi says, in the Catholic doctrine, a state of suffering inhabited by the souls of sinners who are what? Can't see that. Okay, you need to change your text there. Well, hey guys, thank you so much for listening. Take care of yourselves. Andy.